fantasy, caught in a landslide, no escape from reality. Open your eyes, look up to the sky.
Introduction. This was our 6th week in Physics 111. This past week, we put our launchers to the ultimate test as we tried to soak to teach. Things calmed down quite a bit as we turned in our first projects to be reviewed by David and our peers, and prepared ourselves for our one-on-one interviews and the start of our second project. Listen more to hear what I did throughout the week and what I was able to take away and think about more as I move forward into the next week. What I did. This last Tuesday, our first projects were due, and the moment we were all waiting for, Soak to Teach, day had commenced. We were all given one opportunity to hit David with our launchers. There was only one group that even came close to hitting David, and they only splashed his feet. As for the rest of us, some of us missed only by a little bit, but others, like myself, missed by many meters. Afterwards, we went back to class and watched some very entertaining digital stories. I think my favorite had to be the group that made their digital story into almost like a video game, where there were crazy looking animated characters that represented each of the group members. David then told us what we need to have done before we met with him for one-on-one interviews, such as updated lab notebooks, e-portfolio, and completed self and peer evaluations. We also need to work on our group feedback and have them emailed to David by Friday evening. Then we all lined up alphabetically by last name and signed up for one-on-one interviews for either the following Thursday or Tuesday. After everyone signed up for a time for a one-on-one interview, David met with all those pursuing an A in the class and had us all pick topics to debate on and made sure we all had partners to debate with. Outside of class, I prepared for my interview by reviewing graphs, diagrams, and concepts taught in class. Then made sure my lab notebook and e-portfolio site was updated and started to review the TIMs for Project 1 of other groups in our class. Thursday, I had my one-on-one interview with David, where I was tested on position, velocity, and acceleration versus time graphs. I had to graph the launch phase of our project and then explain how Newton's laws of motion applied to each phase. I then was given a sheet with different positions versus time graphs and then had to draw the velocity and acceleration versus time graphs that went with it and explain verbally what was happening in each graph. David then talked with me about how I felt I was doing in the class, then answered any questions or concerns I had about the class thus far. Outside of class on Thursday, I met with my group to get a head start on completing the building phase for our second project. We had already started designing and building our second launcher during our first project when we saw that our first launcher wasn't going very far. We went to Ace's hardware store to get all the supplies needed for our launcher, such as surgical tubing, end cap pieces, hose clamp, and more. Then discussed how we're going to add these things to our launcher so that it will give us optimal results. We then estimated when we should be able to start testing our launcher and talked more about how we're going to make the launcher rotate or movable so that it could hit a moving target. The rest of the weekend, I worked on group feedback, assignments given to me to complete before our next group meeting, and of course, our weekly updates. What I learned. I learned that Blaine and I will be debating each other during the debates in the 11th week, and our topic is whether or not ethanol that is put in fuel is good or bad. I learned what needs to be completed before coming to our one-on-one interviews, such as updates and whatnot. I also learned that all group feedback needs to be emailed to David by 5 p.m. on Friday. I learned as I prepared for my one-on-one interview that I was a little more nervous than I thought I was going to be for my interview. After my interview with David on Thursday, I learned these one-on-one interviews aren't as scary or as intimidating as I thought they were going to be. I also learned that I still second-guess myself when graphing position, velocity, and acceleration versus time graphs. I found through my interview with David that there are still sections of my e-portfolio site that need to be changed or updated. I can see now that this next project is going to go a lot smoother than our last group project. Already, we have beaten the time it's taken us to build our launcher compared to what it did in our first project. I also learned that giving feedback is a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. You have to be really picky, and you have to be careful in the way you word your comments, so that they don't send off the wrong kind of message, like, you stink, I'm a jerk type thing. The most important thing I learned this last week that took me 6 weeks to learn is when going to a hardware store with guys, take a separate car so that you're not stuck there forever looking at random stuff. Just kidding, guys. I really do like Home Depot. What I want or need to learn. I wanted to see if we can do group feedback as a group so that it'd be more detailed and a little easier on others. Now that the first project is over, I am anxious to dive into our second project, and with that, want to know how my team wants to plan out and organize our next project so we can create a timeline and continue to be organized and successful on our second project. I need to practice graphing position, velocity, and acceleration versus time graphs more so I can be more confident in the knowledge and understanding of these concepts. I also want to know what will be the guidelines for our next project, other than just being able to hit a moving target. Finally, I want to learn more about what my group thinks of the timeline I created for our project, and am eager to know what feedback David and our other classmates have for us on Project 1. Conclusion. I feel as though I conquered quite a bit this past week, with my group's launcher performing at its highest peak yet on Soak the Teach Day, having my one-on-one interview over and done with, finishing all the group feedback for their TEMs, and finally knowing that my group will probably start testing our launcher for the second project this week. I feel really good and confident in my current standing in the class. I'm looking forward to all the new concepts and laws this next project will bring, and hope now that I know what to expect, I can stop stressing over what to expect and just start having more fun and be able to be more creative with our second project.
Another one bites the dust. Another one bites the dust. And another one gone, and another one gone. Another one bites the dust. Hey, hey, we're gonna get you too. Another one bites